here talking about passive investing for freedom and legacy, helping you busy professionals achieve trinity of freedom in time, financial, and geography freedom. I'm your host, founder of Life Mission Capital. My name is Missy Liu, and we also have Tina Nguyen here. She's a passive investor and senior system engineer with Walmart. So, the key thing we'll answer today are two questions. What is passive investing in real estate, and how to get to financial freedom, financial independence via passive investing? And we're going to talk about our introduction, me and Tina and my company, and our previous attempt to freedom, and what is passive investing in real estate, how Tina gained financial independence through the process, and how we, Life Mission Capital, can help as well. And then we'll move on to the Q&A section. Disclaimer that this content is for general information purpose only and does not constitute tax, legal, or accounting advice, and it's not a solicitation for offering either. Please consult with your personal financial advisors, tax accountant, etc., to verify research and information that's specific to you. Now, congratulations again. We really appreciate you being here, but also congratulations for being here, because financial freedom is only for those who learn about it and also work for it, right? You can only have one, maybe two jobs, but you can have as many apartment complexes, short-term rentals, mobile home parks, and other cash flowing assets, so you can make the money work for you. Now, my name is Missy. As I mentioned, I have invested a little bit over 1,000 units as a general partner and a fund manager, and a little bit over 700 units as limited partners as well. I also started a real estate investment club with more than 700 members. Tina is part of the club members. And you see a few pictures of me here. Really, that's kind of one of the reasons, one of my whys for wanting to do investing passively in real estate. My husband, we just got married last year, and my husband comes from a economically speaking lower middle class in the U.S. And my host family, who when I came to the U.S. as 16, they hosted me and welcomed me to the freedom of the U.S. and my family in China as well. So I really want to be able to provide freedom not just for myself, but for others, like my brothers and sisters, whether it's the American dream, which is having that financial freedom for them to pursue things in their life that they love about. And also education, financial literacy is also something I'm super passionate about as well, with junior achievement and other financial institutions that I volunteered with. And mostly because I never got to learn about any of the stuff I will be presenting, and Tina will be presenting today. And I think it's so important for kids to know about that, so they don't have to, live their life because of the financial constraints, but live their life because of the values we can pass on to them. Now, with my background, apart from the real estate experiences that I have since 2019 through house hacking accidentally, and then moved into passive and active investing after try to do tenants and toilets on my own through being a landlord. I also have about 8 years of professional experience working for Fortune 500 companies in the audio and data analytics field. And that's the skill I use to help provide a white glove service for busy professionals to passively invest in real estate so they can focus on what matters. So that's me. And my company, there's a few things that's really important for us. Those are people, data, transparency, and life mission. We focus on people, whether it's our investors, our lenders, my company team members, our partners, or data. Just being a data analytics background, I always like to use data to make as emotionless decisions as possible when it comes to investment, and really provide that transparency when it comes to what's happening at our investment level, at our company level, to our investors as well. And my goal is to help other people accomplish more of their life mission. And now, Tina, would you like to give an intro about yourself as well?
Sure. My name is Tina, and I met Missy through a real estate investment club at our company. And so we just got to talk to each other. And I just want to give a quick introduction about myself. I came from Vietnam and a pretty humble background. And then we migrated to the US, and my parents at the time had 4 kids, and they were making less than $30,000 a year together. And so we were trying to make ends meet all the time. I don't remember a day when we weren't worried about finance. Throughout all my life, I worked really hard to pursue American dreams, and that is to get a really good paying job. And in order to do that, I had to find a good major to major in, and then get a good paying job, and then getting a nice car and nice house and things like that. So that was my American dream at the time. And I've achieved it. I got a pretty decent paying job. That was my starting pay was way more than my parents were making together for their entire work life. So I was really happy with that. But then a few years later, a couple of light bulb moments hit me at the time. My company was starting to lay people off annually and sometimes even twice a year. And then we had a new manager, and I wasn't getting along with her very well at the time. And I thought, well, since my company was laying off, it would be very easy for her to just get rid of me. So that was when I started to think about what is my plan B should something like that happen. And so I start pulling up my 401k, and by that time I was working there for maybe 5 years-ish. And so I pull it up, and when I look at my 401k, it wasn't doing well at all. It wasn't even making 3-4% a year. Like you keep hearing people talking about the 8 to 10% average. That wasn't the case with the 401k. And so that's when I started to think, okay, there has to be another way. But at the time, I didn't know what it was. And so somehow I stumbled upon real estate investing, learned it, and just started investing. So you can go to the next slide. So my first experience with real estate investing was there was a foreclosure a few blocks from where I lived at the time, and my thought process was buy that house and fix it up and rent it out, and if it didn't work, I could just sell it, because if it's a single family homes, it's fairly easy to sell. So that was my exit strategy should that did not work as I planned to be. It turned out, for the most part, it worked really well. I got about $400 of cash flow, and that is the net that I got after the mortgage, the insurance, the taxes, and all that stuff. And so I thought that was a pretty good beginning of real estate investing. So I kind of repeated the process and eventually owned about 18 doors on my own. And then another light bulb came along after that. And throughout this time, I never stopped learning. I continued to read books. I continued to listen to various podcasts. And there were a lot of podcasts that I started listening to, and it was about multifamily investing. And they were talking about what the pros of that over single family investing. And so I was listening, but I kept it in the back of my mind. Well, there was the other light bulb moments came along is when I was trying to manage the 6 duplexes, which was like 12 doors that I had. I was trying to manage it on my own, and I already had a full-time job. And that one was taking an additional like 20 hours a week, and I just couldn't handle that load. And one day I was out with a friend at the mall, and I got a call from a tenant that one of the duplexes caught on fire. So needless to say, I couldn't really have fun after that anymore because I was distracted. And so the other light bulb moment came along, and it came along with the learning that I had in the background. And so I shifted my strategy from really actively invested in single family homes into multifamily or multifamily real estate syndications. So as of today, I started this about 8 years ago, and as of today, I got about 9 syndications there, including hotels. A lot of it is multifamilies, and then self-storage and ATMs. So that's it. Hopefully that's give you a quick background on where I am today.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. I know you got some pretty interesting pictures that you'll share later as well. And you have gained financial independence through the process, and you're getting close to financial freedom as well. And, we'll have some questions that we want to ask you in that space as well. Now, a lot of people may ask, Tina, you started investing passively about, I believe, 6-7 years ago now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So market has changed so much, right? Like S&P is down 24%, now inflation is 8% and more, and
Mm-hmm.
bonds are more than 13% down as well. By GDP data, we're officially in a recession. So people may be asking, does it still make sense to invest in real estate now? In general, and that's a very broad question. And specifically, what we're passionate about as an investing instrument to get to freedom is passive investing commercial real estate. And real estate in general is very recession resistant. So, not recession, very inflation resistant. So when cost of living goes up, your rent may go up as well, right? So that's why it's inflation resistant. And the market value for commercial real estate, because it's an investment, it also is based on income rather than the comps in the single family space. So if you're able to find ways to increase the income, you're able to basically force the appreciation rather than just letting your properties or investment appreciation or value change based on the market. So you are able to take control a little bit more. When I say you, it doesn't have to be you physically. I'm talking about investors in general. And there's different types of commercial real estate as well, right? Like manufactured housing, for example, mobile home parks, apartments, built to rent. Those housing needs are so strong. We'll have more than 5 million houses in shortage right now. And we're just having a hard time catching up on the need of housing since the 2009 recession. So I used to say that this is a different space, and there are still a lot of opportunities. And the general question it's really hard to give a general answer to it, but in short, those are the 3 reasons. Commercial real estate is still really good to invest in, but obviously it varies based on the opportunities in the market and also the people you're investing with. Now, this is the pictures I wanted to show you, and Tina wanted to show you as well. I put it together. The left two, kind of here and here, are my attempt to freedom. When after I house hacked, I purchased another duplex, and it was in the middle of the pandemic. The tenants weren't paying. I didn't know that when I purchased it. If I knew even, a tenth of what I know today, I wouldn't have made that mistake. But it was a very stressful process working with a tenant and a resident, and when they trashed the place and paying late. And Tina, I think you have some interesting stories here as well, right?
Yeah, so the top 2 pictures on the right, the one on the left is the first foreclosure that I bought that mostly was just cosmetics, and there's except for maybe replacing the floor, but that was the biggest one. So I actually thought I would be able to repaint everything, replace the floor with help of some of my friends within a month and get it rented quickly. It actually ended up 3 to 4 months later, and then I spent a lot more capital than I thought I would. But it had a success story at the end, as I was saying earlier, that I did successfully get it rented out and netted about $300 to $400 a month. So that was pretty good, and I thought that was pretty good, even though there was still a stress and there was still a time factor, because trying to work you think it's 45-hour job, but because I was on call and night pager, it was a lot more than just 45. It was more feels like 6 hours a week, plus trying to remodel the place, because if you don't remodel, you can't rent it out, and then therefore you're not making money. And then I had to reserve a bunch of capital to pay for all the remodeling stuff. The bottom picture is the fire that's represent the fire that one of my duplexes got caught on. Even though insurance paid for all of it, except for deductible, it was still a headache trying to get straight through and making sure everything is taken care of. And then just talk to the tenants and figure out where she can go while it's been replaced and all that stuff. So
yeah, I think all that is to say that, active investing is not for everyone. And for me and Tina, we chose not to continue in that path. And because of the stress it added to our lives, the time it took away from our lives, and the risk that got added to get those returns. Yeah, so that says it all. So our lessons learned through this process is that saving is not enough. We need to let our dollars work for us. And being a landlord can be another job. And there is a lot of risks involved with tenants and toilets.
And fires.
And fires. And, there are also people who are already successful in their profession, like certain doctors and lawyers that we work with, or IT professionals. They're really good and comfortable with what they're doing and their expertise. They don't really want to be a hands-on active investor, so to say, because at the end of the day, those are just tools. But what's important for them and for us is freedom, time, financial, and geography freedom, right? I don't want to get a call when I visit my family in China that something's super bad and I have to come back to fix it. So I don't want that. That's why we love passive investing using the power of leverage. So, right, how to use your money to work for you. One of the richest people on earth is not necessarily a W-2 worker, but it is bankers. So how do you make your money multiply and work for you? We got to leverage general partners. When we're passively investing, we work with general partners who are more hands-on with the operations. We leverage their time, their knowledge, their team, whether it's property management team, construction team, and their financial strength to take out the loans, their skills in research the market, and also capital of other investors, right? We're going to purchase 300 units apartments, and it costs a few $1 million of down payment to purchase this maybe $30 million apartment complexes. So that comes in from multiple investors. And also third-party due diligence as well, right? Like that's one of the things my company does. We do another layer of due diligence with the partners we work with, the property we work with, and the market we work with as well. And as a passive investor, here are some of the benefits I really enjoyed. And its ability to invest in inflation and also recession-resistant assets, such as apartment complexes, mobile home parks as well, that we're going into. No tenants and toilets I have to deal with, complete passive income, huge tax benefits as well. And that's like another topic on its own. And we can access a lot larger investment opportunities as well, leveraging the economies of scale. For example, in single family home, a lot of times property management company would charge like 10% to manage it, one unit. But when it comes to 300 units, it can be 3%. So it's a lot lower in that regard. And you can also enjoy higher returns without exposing yourself to personal liabilities and credit risk, whether it's the fire example or a legal risk when it comes to evictions and different things like that. So eventually we're trying to get to the same location, that's freedom. But general partners are just as pilots, and we're on the same plane heading to the freedom goals. So now, Tina, fill us within the piece about how you got to your financial independence. Now the listeners and the attendees have a good understanding what is passive investing and our stories around how we arrived here. Maybe save them some trouble from the lessons you learned, how you got to your financial independence.
So the first one is know your why. I started with real estate investing because, as I was saying earlier, a lot of things were happening with my company, my manager, and at the time, my job didn't feel secure. And I knew I wanted something that I had slightly more control over that I could do on myself. And so I went into real estate investing. At the time, I didn't know the differences between passive investment or active investment. I just knew real estate sounded something like I could do. So that's I started my why with having real estate investing as my tool, and I went from there. And later, as I mentioned earlier, later that did shift over to passive investing. Um, the financial independence. So at the time, I knew I needed about $3,000 a month to be financially independent, where I could pay my basic bills and have some money aside for food and stuff. And so I thought if I could buy first family, single family resident, rent it out about $300-400 a month. Then if I could just repeat it about 10 times, then I would get my financial independence number. And so that's what I was going toward. The third step I did was, as I was trying to go through all this, I realized that I want to buy more homes, more houses to invest in, but I ran out of capital, and so I had to figure out. Okay, I there was one job, and that job literally I couldn't find another part-time job because the job in IT, it requires you to be to have the pager. So if you have the pager, or if your teammate calls you for help, it's kind of hard to be working on your second job and then have to tend to the pager of your first job. So I knew that was an option. And so what I did is I was trying to focus on increase my earning potentials by getting pay raises, by doing really well and getting higher pay raises and getting more promotions. The going While I was doing that, the save and budget to invest, that's to me is kind of common sense in a way, just because I came from a really humble background, and so that came natural to me. I think I was saving at least 50% of I say at least, it's probably closer to 75% of my income to invest. As for budget, because saving came natural to me, the budget part I didn't even really need to worry about. But if you are someone who like to budget in order to keep you on goal, then by all means do that. And then, as I was, like I say, I try to constantly listen to podcasts and read books to learn more about businesses and finance. I actually found creative ways to diversify, to use the capital to invest. And so what I did is I did a Roth IRA, and I made it a self-directed IRA, and I used that to invest. And then this is going to make me sound dumb, because at the time, before I knew all about real estate investing, I bought my primary homes because, like I said, I was chasing this American dreams of owning your own house. And so I bought a really good, nice, decent house that I loved, and I paid it off within 3 years. And then as soon as I learned about real estate investing, I start scratching my head, and I'm like, okay, that was dumb, because I could have take all that money and put a down payment on 3-4 other houses. And I didn't know at the time. So as soon as I figured that out, I did a cash out refinance on my primary home and was able to take that money and put a down payment on 3-4 other rental properties. The other one, which is you don't hear this often, but if you have whole life insurance, you have what's called cash value that you can use and borrow against, and use that for investment as well. And that is one of my strategy. I actually took out a whole life insurance about 3 years ago, and since then I put a little bit more money in there than the premium so that I have the money, and the company is paying me dividends while I can use that dividend and the cash value in order to pay to invest as well. So those were the ways that I just by learning I figured out that's how you can get more money to invest into real estate. Step 6, so now that you have all the cash and you're ready to invest, and while you do all that, always, like I said, just keep on learning. And what I did is I listened to a lot of podcasts about various investing, and what I did is I just kind of listened to how these people interview other people, what kind of knowledge they had, what kind of battle scars they have, and how they overcame it. And you kind of start, after about a few months of just listening to episode after episodes about them, you kind of out what kind of person they are and whether they have integrity or not. And so that's what I did. And I would kind of send them an email and say, hey, I listened to your podcast. Could we have a chat for 30 minutes? And of course, they always looking for investor to invest into their deals. And so they would be just happy to reach out to you, and I would have a talk, ask them questions, and then they would add me to their investor list. And then when they have a deal, they can just send it out, and I would just reevaluate, listen to the webinar and see if that's something I want to invest in. So that's what I did in order for me to be ready. Like if I have the money, if I have the capital and there's a deal coming in, I jump in and invest. Number 7, it's again, to me, it's a common sense, but it's you have to invest with someone you trust and has integrity, because that is very important. You about to give, I don't know, $25,000 to $100,000 to these sponsors. And so you have to look into your background, make sure you trust that person. If your intuition is telling you that this is not someone you can trust or share the similar values, someone who actually cares about the investor and helping them to get to the goals instead of just all about them. If your intuition says don't invest, then just don't invest, even if the numbers is right, because it doesn't matter how great math is, the people can fudge the numbers. So make sure you understand the numbers, it's important, but also make sure it's someone who has integrity as well. And then the last one is repeat and compound, and then you can talk to the chart.
Sure, you can speak to it too, Tina. I think one thing you didn't mention, and the reason I know is, I know Tina very well. She's also a good friend of mine. She not only gained financial independence for herself, but she also take care of her mother financially as well. Being an immigrant, in the first generation immigrant in this country, the parents didn't come from a lot, so she's also helping with her mom. So it sounds easy, repeat and compound, but that's where the magic happens. You see this chart, let's assume 8% cash on cash return, which depending on the time of the market and the specific asset you invest in, it can vary, but I just use that. I think it's a somewhat reasonable assumption, depending on what you're investing. 8% cash on cash return. That's after, just simplified way, after you collect rent, pay expenses, pay mortgages, and other reserves you have to have, you basically get left with 8%, for example. And then with the assumption that you're able to double your capital every 5 years, which is also fairly common in the industry, especially if you're investing with the right people who has a track record of delivering those returns. So assuming those, essentially, if you look at the chart, within about 10 years, if you keep reinvesting the money that you're getting, you're able to get to about $80,000, $82,000 in terms of cash flow. And that's really the goal, to get to the cash flow that you can live off of. So you aren't really necessarily eating into your actual principal. Similar concept with dividend investing as well. So I understand that all that process can sound a little bit daunting, and that's why we're here at Life Mission Capital, where we're helping you complete more due diligence processes, whether it's with the partners we work with, what's their track record and their investor experience, their presence locally, or specific location level due diligence. We dive into a lot of reports, get into local contacts, and visit local property in some situations as well. We'll also complete asset level due diligence on those properties as well, so that you can feel more comfortable in investing your hard-earned money into those assets that can help you gain the freedom that we talked about. Typically in the investment, let's say take a example of 300 unit apartment complex in Houston, Class B asset. Class B is near another luxury apartment we call Class A. Now the workforce housing we'll usually call Class C. Class B is kind of in the middle, but we have a value add component. This is a component I mentioned earlier, forcing the appreciation. We always want to look for opportunities like that, so we're not moving up and down so violently like any market would, because as you know, real estate is also cyclical. So we want to force the appreciation with a value add plan to give us a little more control in the market. Typical investment is $50,000 minimum with a 5-year hold. It can be longer or shorter depending on the specific investment. And there is typically a cash flow return across the hold of 7%. It can be higher or lower depending on the asset class as well, because we're more of an opportunistic investor. We don't necessarily stick with one asset class. And between cash flow and appreciation, we're looking at usually between 15 to 20% average annual return. So if you're interested in learning more about this type of passive income opportunities and just this philosophy and how we work, how we help with our investors, feel free to scan here and book a call with me, and we can talk a little bit more about your investment goals and see if we're a good fit in helping you get to your legacy and freedom goals. Now, we're going to leave the slide on for a second, but we're going to open it up for Q&A. Let's see what questions we have. All right.